Anin Bushu. Hello and greetings. My name is Pastor John Marvin Scott. I serve as the Director for Youth, Young Adults, and Adventist Christian Fellowship at the Ontario Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I wish to acknowledge the lands and people of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We are thankful to be welcomed on these lands in friendship. The lands of which the Ontario Conference is situated are covered under the Williams Treaties and the traditional territory of the Mississauga, a branch of the great Anishinaabe Nation, including Algonquin, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. Over the course of more than a century, starting in 1828 and ending in 1997, over 150,000 Indigenous children were abused, tortured, raped, and murdered in residential schools funded by the Canadian government and run by Christian churches. The recent discovery of over 1,500 unmarked graves on the grounds of former residential schools in Kamloops and Cranbrook, BC, Marieville, Saskatchewan, and Brandon, Manitoba, has been a troubling yet necessary reminder of a dark and abhorrent chapter of genocide in Canadian history experienced by the Indigenous people in Canada. It didn't happen far away, nor did it happen a long time ago. It happened right here in our lifetime. The Indigenous children in the residential school system lost their language, culture, traditions, and teachings, and over 4,100 of those children's lives were taken from them. People who professed to be loving, God-fearing Christians conducted themselves and these schools in a manner that was reprehensible, disgraceful, and diametrically opposed to the very heart and character of Christ, as well as to everything Christians stand for and believe in. While the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Canada never operated a residential school, it could be easily inferred that we contributed to the awful experience of the Indigenous people by being bystanders. Our silence, through the unspeakable harm and trauma inflicted on the Indigenous people, played a role in their experience and contributed to the assault, mischaracterization, and misrepresentation of God's perfect love. In the face of this national tragedy and moment of historical reflection, these thoughts may culminate in a feeling of helplessness. Thankfully, we are able and available to do something. We must do something. And by God's grace, we desire to be agents of transformation. It's in the spirit of reconciliation that I can declare to you today that Ontario Conference Youth Ministries Department will stand in solidarity with and in support of the Indigenous people in Canada. We will stand for what is right, advocate for the oppressed, and speak out in the face of injustice as Christ calls us to do. We're committed to fostering open and safe spaces where Adventist and Indigenous youth can come together to create communities that are founded upon allyship, mutual respect, and are imbued with love. We will continue to support the growth of Indigenous people through our youth mission projects, especially in Northern Ontario, in concert with their local efforts to build vibrant, dynamic, and strong communities. These will be achieved through our partnership with ADRA Canada, an agency dedicated to serve humanity so all may live as God intended. We will continue to build lasting relationships with Indigenous peoples. Our dedication to the process of reconciliation must result from a deep introspection and Christ-given conviction to be ambassadors for God who reflect, in accordance with Scripture, an accurate, genuine display of Christ's love. Additionally, we believe that we must continue to work alongside Indigenous leaders to access resources that facilitate an environment for personal learning and growth. We encourage you to connect with the 4 Seasons of Reconciliation course, a collaboration between the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Canada's Indigenous Ministries and the First Nations University of Canada. You can also find additional and powerful resources at the Downey Wenjack Fund, the Canadian Roots Exchange, the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, the Moccasin Project, the Witness Blanket, and many other resources online and at local community centers. The time for silence has passed. It's now time for us to act. As Canadians and Christians alike, we have a moral responsibility to speak truth and be part of the reconciliation process. No longer can we be bystanders. These mass graves are unfortunately not the last. We know that there are more to come. But when those difficult days do arrive, we can promise the Indigenous people in Canada that we will, side by side, stand with you. We will advocate for, and we will be there in love and action with you. As we chart the course ahead of an unwritten future, be reminded that the history and experience of the Indigenous people is the history and experience of Canada, that we must acknowledge, accept, and seek to understand. Let it be our determination to not repeat the sins of the past, but rather to embrace a bold, new, and just society where all, regardless of culture, sex, religion, or ethnicity, are treated with fairness, equality, and mutual respect. Let it be our prayer for God to open our eyes to see the pain, the loss, and the truth that we are not all that we would like to be. To unstop our ears that we might listen for our shared humanity, and to seal our lips that the listening might be uninterrupted by a need to deny, discount, or rewrite history again. To open our hearts to seek forgiveness, embrace love, and be champions for reconciliation. Heal us and heal this land. May God bless you. Go in peace. Thank you. Miigwech.